Welcome back to Local News Live. I'm Victoria Shirley. We will be speaking with Wave 3 news anchor Myra Ansari here in just a moment. She's going to be talking to us about some latest developments in a case involving West Nile. So let's go ahead and bring her on here for you. Myra, thank you so much for joining us here on Local News Live.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I wish it was under better circumstances and a better story to tell you, but I think West Nile virus is something that we're not thinking about, but we should be thinking about, Victoria.
Absolutely. And Myra, you were talking to us here at Local News Live earlier, letting us know that unfortunately West Nile virus has killed at least one person in Kentucky and infected a couple of others. Can you give us the latest details on this story?
Sure. So we just got some information from our local public health officials. As you mentioned, that a Louisville resident has died from the West Nile virus, and two others have tested positive here in Jefferson County. You know, Victoria, with everything that's been going on lately, you know, COVID has been on our brains, and then, you know, maybe flu, but we haven't been talking about West Nile virus, and that's something that we should also, because who would ever think that they could possibly die from the West Nile virus? But clearly that has happened here in our community. So last year there were 3 human cases of West Nile virus, and but no deaths. So this is different this year. In 2020, there were no human cases or deaths, and that's according to our local public health department. So health officials say that mosquitoes carrying West Nile virus, it's not unusual during this time of year. Mosquitoes with the virus continue to be found by departments in several areas. But in most cases, people infected with West Nile virus, they show relatively mild symptoms, if any at all. And less than 1% of people infected will develop a serious neurological illness such as encephalitis or meningitis. Victoria.
All right, very concerning there because, I mean, mosquitoes are everywhere, very pervasive in the summer and in the evenings, especially the summer evenings. So who should be concerned here, Myra? Who is at risk?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because I don't know about you. I love to spend time outdoors. I love to go on walks. I love to go on trails and hiking with my dog and my kids. So I get bit up all the time. And like, that's something that I'm concerned about. So you asked who's at most at risk for severe disease. And so this is according to our local health department. Most of those folks who are at risk for severe disease, they're 60 years or older. And those with certain medical conditions like cancer, diabetes, and kidney disease, and anyone who's received an organ transplant is also at risk for serious illness.
All right, so some important information there. So everybody's probably wondering, how in the world can you protect yourself when you were just saying you like to be outside and mosquitoes are a concern because it's hard to get through a summer without getting bitten. So how can you protect yourself?
Absolutely. I think the one thing I did personally this year different is that I bought several cans of that mosquito repellent, right? It used to be one of those things I would just kind of walk by. I would always grab my sunscreen, but mosquito repellent is so incredibly important. So our local health department encouraged people to use insect repellent when going outside, specifically repellents containing DEET, and I'm hoping I'm saying some of these things right, but picaridin, IR 3535, and also some oil of lemon eucalyptus and para-methanediol products. They also recommended people wear long sleeves when they're outside. I know sometimes that's kind of hard when it's hot outside, but that definitely helps. It's also, though, possible for mosquitoes to bite through thin clothing, so be sure to spray your clothes with repellent for extra protection. And the health department said to not apply repellents containing permethrin directly to your skin. And also, Victoria, here locally, the department conducts mosquito fogging in areas where West Nile virus has been detected. So that will hopefully help folks. And here, I know that we're going across the country here to all of our stations, but locally here, if you're tuning into us in the Louisville area, all you have to do to check if your area has been fogged or will be fogged, you'll call the mosquito hotline. And And that number is also on the health department's website, or you visit the health department's website. And people can make a complaint about the mosquitoes in their neighborhood by calling Metro Call as well. So there are things that you can do. But that spray, it does make a difference.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that this is something specifically they're doing in Louisville, but I do know several communities across our country also fog for mosquitoes. So definitely check in with your local municipalities to see if your local leaders offer that service for your communities. So something I wanted to touch back on, circle back to, Myra, is you had mentioned that this isn't unusual for Louisville to have cases of West Nile virus, but it is fairly unusual, at least in the past couple of years, to see a death from West Nile virus. So how is the community reacting there?
As we mentioned, Victoria, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
It's okay.
People infected with it, they're okay. So about less than 1% of people infected, they're going to develop a serious neurological illness, such as I mentioned, encephalitis or meningitis. So most people get it and they're probably fine. But if you have those risk factors that I mentioned, you're 60 or older, you have certain medical conditions like cancer, diabetes, kidney disease, and anyone who's received an organ transplant, those are things that you just really need to be careful about for your well-being, because who can think that something this little can do such big harm to your health?
Yes. Add ticks to that as well. There's so many dangers that come along with ticks, with Lyme disease. So yeah, little critters can make a big impact, unfortunately. But I did want to ask you how your community is reacting to this death. And if you have any more details about the death itself, has the health department released any more details about the individual?
We don't know anything yet because we just got information today that someone has passed away. So we don't know if that person had any pre-existing issues. So that's something that we're just waiting on. But I think if you are at risk, or anyone, I put insect repellent on my kids all the time. And I actually this year, for a change, had my yard area sprayed for mosquitoes because I hate getting bit. It does kind of concern me. And, they're everywhere, and it's just annoying when you're outside. And I think so many of us want to be outside, right, Victoria? Because now that things are getting back to normal, there's festivals, there's concerts to go to, more things to do outdoors. We're getting into the fall season, that you just want to be careful.
Yes, absolutely. So it's fairly fresh in the news then that you guys are learning about this. So we'll touch back touch base with you again to see how your community is reacting and any additional information that may come out. And if people want to learn more about West Nile virus or about this story in particular, where can they find more information?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that, because one of the best resources that you can go to is the CDC website, which is what I have pulled up right here. They have prevention tips that you can click on and go to, how to protect yourself, use insect repellent. You heard me mention all of those things like DEET, IR 3535, all those things, and they have it all broken down. Tips for babies and children. So things that you can do to help yourself. And they also have, if you kind of want to know where things are at in your area, statistics and maps about what trends we're seeing wherever you are, because of course this is different everywhere. But then also I would really recommend, Victoria, just checking in with your local health department. They probably have resources, a website, or something to call to find out if there are cases in your area, what you should do, and that sort of thing.
All right, Myra Ansari, an anchor in Louisville, Kentucky for our great TV station Wave 3 News. Thank you so much for joining us here on Local News Live. It's always a treat, and you are one of our favorites here at Local News Live. So thank you so much.
I enjoy you all. So thank you for all your work that you do.
All right, we'll let you go, and thank you again to Myra Ansari. I'll go ahead and cut her loose here. All right, you were listening to Myra Ansari talk to us about the latest unfortunate death in West Nile virus in Louisville, Kentucky. The first in several years. 2 others have tested positive for West Nile. And if you want more information, go to Wave 3 News or wave3.com. Wave3.com. All right, that about wraps it up for us here on Local News Live. We'll be right back.